Hey everyone. Today we're actually going to talk again about COVID-19 or the coronavirus. This is affecting markets everywhere, obviously, which is the reason why we're talking about it. Normally we just stick to talking about cryptocurrency, but today we're gonna dive into COVID-19, give an update on some of the stats that we're getting. Obviously, there's uncertainties in the data, but we're gonna go ahead and press forward. So if you guys like the channel, please subscribe. Would love to have you here. Uh, Looking to expand the channel some and focus on some other things, including things that are affecting markets like coronavirus. So some of the recent headlines, if you haven't really been following the news, today the World Health Organization declared COVID-19 as a pandemic. So that was pretty eventful in that we're finally saying, it is a pandemic, it is spreading globally. A lot of people are going to be getting infected. And then later this evening, we had an announcement that travel from Europe to the USA is restricted for 30 days starting Friday for foreign nationals. So if you're still the recent headline is that if you're a U.S. citizen, you can still come back. But if you're a foreign national, then you're gonna face restrictions for the next 30 days starting Friday. Maybe not including the UK, but including the rest of Europe. We also saw that the NBA season was canceled. So, there's a lot of people out there that kind of ignore whatever is going on in the media and what's going on worldwide, but they are avid basketball fans. And this is really now affecting people, that maybe weren't otherwise affected. The NBA has canceled their season. March Madness, crowds are not going to be allowed. So only family members and people, people that are close to the teammates. Other news, Italy, obviously we know that it's been under lockdown. They've shut down nearly all the shops except for like grocery stores and pharmacies. Basically everything is shut down, and I think even today the number of cases went up by like 2,000 or something. So they're really trying to put a stop to this virus in Italy. The Dow Jones Industrial Average entered a bear market, so it officially ended its 11-year bull run, which I believe the anniversary of the start of that bull run was exactly 11 years ago. And of course, the NASDAQ and the S&P 500 are very close behind and could also easily enter into a bear market. And clearly we can tell that, crypto markets are responding negatively to the news. We've talked about this in the past in terms of a recession. What would happen if the world economy is kind of going down the tube in a sense? Well, people tend to liquidate high risk assets, and there's no exception for cryptocurrency. It's not, Bitcoin is not adopted worldwide yet. It's still going to be, it's still responsive to news, and even in bear markets, you can. I like to say that when the news comes in, it reacts according to what the market is in. So in a bear market, any bad news is people usually react really badly to it, and there's sell off. But in a bear market, if there's good news, it's often ignored. Well, on the other hand, in a bull market, people tend to ignore bad news and just react positively to good news. So these are some things that I've noticed over the years. But anyways, the global economy is definitely in shambles right now, with a lot of stocks being down significantly, and of course this travel restriction is really gonna hurt airlines, and of course also cruise ships are also going to be affected with all the restrictions placed on them. So let's go ahead and jump into some of the data, because I posted this a couple days ago and I wanted to give an update. So 2 days ago, I posted a video that showed, China and everywhere else, and obviously especially with China, I imagine there's going to be some, the number of cases reported is not necessarily that accurate, but this is the data we have. If you feel the need to talk about the reliability of the data, you can feel free to do that in the comments. But this is what was going on everywhere else in the world. This was 2 days ago, so let's update this. You can see that we've continued this trend, so we're still in the exponential growth phase. We have not transitioned to logistic growth, I should say. To remind you, this is exponential growth, and this is logistic growth. So at some point, we would expect this to level out. And you can see that for China, that's basically what it looks like. You can see that we start off, we enter exponential growth, and then we turn it over eventually and start to level out. Now, obviously, you're going to say, well, this isn't necessarily reliable. I'm not arguing that point. I'm just saying this is what it would look like. If we were to see, at some point, this will level out. It won't go up forever. And it's just a matter of when it starts to level out. And a lot of that will have to do with the response of nations and governments and towns and just everyone. If people can distance themselves, social distancing, if you can stay away from other people and try to reduce the chances that you're infected, and obviously if you are infected, then taking the appropriate precautions. But one of the things I wanted to talk about too is this daily growth factor, and this is basically if you take the number of cases yesterday and multiply it, or you take the cases number of today and then divide it by the cases yesterday, you'll get the growth. And you can see that as long as we're above 1 in this region, we're going to be seeing exponential growth, and recently it even started going back up again. So that's I just wanted to alert everyone that we're not continuing to go down in the short term. It actually started to move up, but also recognize that even in this, there's a lot of uncertainty, just because a lot of places, there's still a lot of testing that needs to be done. And in the US especially, I would say that there's a lot of people that want to be tested that are hopefully going to get tested at some point soon, and we're likely going to see the number of cases skyrocket in the United States, just as more and more people get tested and even as the infection spreads. So I also wanted to show this logarithmic scale. So this is the number of cases on the y-axis, and this is the red dots are basically all the cases except for in China, and this was our regression line, and this was as of 2 days ago. And we drew an extrapolation, and we talked about the dangers of extrapolation. Obviously, it's not wise to typically extrapolate, but that we did it because we want to get an idea of where this could be headed. And obviously, at some point, we would expect this to level off and not continue up this curve. But if we update this, you can see that we have continued to stay exactly on that curve. So this was 2 days ago, and then the next 2 data points, basically fall right on that curve, as you can see as I toggle back and forth. So again, we're probably going to continue to move up this curve. I wouldn't even be surprised if we started to move above it as more people actually get tested, because I get the impression that there's probably a lot of people that have it that just haven't been tested yet because they either don't have access to the tests, or maybe they're just self-quarantining themselves at home, assuming they have it, and they're just not reporting it. But anyways, maybe they will report it if they get sick enough, and maybe as new cases or as more and more people are tested, we might see a spike. And I think what's going to be interesting is how the public responds to that spike, because in the United States right now there's just a little over 1,000 cases, and I would expect that to move up substantially several times over the next several days. So we're obviously going to follow that and see what transpires there. I wanted to talk about, because there's a lot of people that will compare the coronavirus with infection rates and whatnot with the flu. And of course, there are some differences between the coronavirus and the flu. Coronavirus is, it's fairly new, and there's just no immunity to it right now. And actually, I think I've heard of some cases where people get it more than once. The death rate is pretty high. Obviously, the flu has killed a lot more people this year, but there's still a lot of unknowns that come with the coronavirus in terms of, is it going to dissipate as temperatures warm up? There's even news today that Tom Hanks got the coronavirus and he's in Australia. And clearly it's a lot warmer in Australia right now because they're in the southern hemisphere. So let's talk more about the infection rate, because this is the average number of people infected for each sick person that has it. So let's say if I were to get sick, how many people on average would I infect? So for a regular seasonal flu, it's about 1.3. We've had a few pandemics in the past. So we had the 1957 flu pandemic. It was around 1.6. The 1968 flu pandemic around 1.8. The 2009 flu pandemic around 1.5. Now, the Spanish flu back in the late 19 teens, 1918 or so, it had an infection rate, an average number of people infected for each sick person of around 2 to 3. And that killed millions and millions of people. Now, COVID-19 is currently at 2.2. And I think one of the reasons why the Spanish flu killed so many people too was just because people minimized it and people didn't take it seriously. And by the time they did realize it was a serious threat, it was kind of too late at that point. Now, the pro, I guess, with COVID-19 is that if you're young and healthy, it tends to not be as lethal than the Spanish flu was, because the Spanish flu killed a ton of people that were young and healthy, whereas COVID-19 seems to be a lot more deadly towards elderly people and people with underlying conditions. Now, obviously, that's still concerning because if it's any population, if there's a very high death rate, then it's concerning. But I just wanted to highlight some of the differences there. And I also wanted to talk about the doubling time. So this is a graph that I showed a couple videos ago. I didn't show it in this video, but if you go back and look 2 videos ago, or I should say 2 videos ago that I was talking about coronavirus, we looked at the doubling time, but we were just looking in China. Now we're looking at the doubling time of everywhere in the world except China. So we're just trying to take the information that we have, and obviously recognizing the uncertainty in the data, but trying to understand this growth rate by looking at the number of days it takes for the number of people infected to double. And you can see that early on it was only taking 2 days, and then it shot up to 3 days, 4 days, as high as 8 days. This was kind of like during that initial phase where it was starting to slowly spread to different countries. But then it started coming back down, and this is not good, because that means the time to double is coming down. So we've even gotten to the point recently where the time to double has only taken 3 days. So the number of cases in the world, other than China, if you were to see how long it took that to double, it's been as little as 3 days. At the end of February, and then in late February, early March, it was 4 days. And currently we're at around 5 days or so. And the reason it doesn't go out until our present day is because we just haven't doubled yet from whatever the number of cases was, on March 7th or whatever it was. So, these are just some statistics that I think are interesting. Obviously, we would like to see this move back up, and we would ultimately want to see our curve here kind of flatten out some. However, as I mentioned, with the cases that are continuing to be shown positive, and as more and more people get tested, and naturally a lot more people are going to test positive, we might even go above this line. And in fact, you can see over here we went above it, and then we've been on the line for about a month or so. So I don't even know that we would continue to stay on it. I think it's possible that we come above it in the short term, especially if people start to get testing, if the masses can start to be tested. Now, the reason we're talking about this video is because it's obviously a big topic on everyone's minds right now, because it is affecting everyone's lives. And whether you think that people are overreacting or not, that's pretty much irrelevant to the fact that it probably will affect your life, considering that schools are closing, travel is being restricted. So even if that is your mentality, it's still important to note that it will affect your life, and it is affecting the global economy. And because it's affecting the global economy, we've seen things like the Dow Jones going into the bear market territory, with the S&P and NASDAQ likely to follow. And additionally, we're seeing these moves in cryptocurrency where we are seeing corrections. And a lot of people might say, well, this is just a Tuesday for Bitcoin, or this is just another day, and that could be true. But I think it's also important to consider the fact that Bitcoin has never experienced a recession, and that there are going to be some people who choose to sell, because if the rest of their portfolio is performing very poorly, then they might liquidate their high-risk assets for cash. It's that simple. It can't be that they're completely, unequivocally uncorrelated. It seems natural that they would be correlated, because we've already, in the past, we've seen, the crypto markets react to other news. That happens all the time. Now, I still think that Bitcoin is still on track. It's still, right now it's still within that primary logarithmic regression band. It hasn't really fallen below. I would say if we were to get the lower part of the band that we have is around is at a price of around $5,000. The 200-week moving average is around $5,500, which we've always held as support. The 100-week moving average, which we held as support a few weeks ago, is at around $7,200, $7,300, and Bitcoin is just sitting north of that. So we obviously will continue to monitor that. But again, if you see that Bitcoin drops a few thousand, then it doesn't necessarily mean that it's crashing to an irreparable state. It just means that maybe people are liquidating some of their assets in the short term, and that Bitcoin is going to trade near the bottom of the band for a while. And if you think about it, in this channel we do push the cycle or the theory of lengthening cycles, as opposed to the 4-year cycle theory. And already, if you were to compare us with 4 years ago, the state of Bitcoin 4 years ago, which was a lot better than it is now in terms of where it was with respect to other key indicators like the 20-week moving average or what the relative strength index was, and things of that nature. You can just look to see that it was a healthier market at the time, and I do expect that to return to Bitcoin. But if the entire global economy goes through a recession or even a depression, then I really can't imagine that Bitcoin is going to be going to 6 figures in the short term, which is further supporting the idea that we're more likely to see a run to, say, 6 figures sometime out in 2 or 3 years from now. Could be late. I think the earliest I could really see it would be late 2022. I could also see it in 2023. It's possible even 2024, but I really don't see it happening in 2021. And I just want people to be aware that there's no such thing as a sure thing. Cryptocurrency obviously comes with its risks, and that needs to be taken into consideration. So if you're investing more than you can afford to lose, then you are doing something wrong. And if you're investing, money that you're going to need in a month, if it, no matter what, then it probably doesn't make a lot of sense to be putting it into high risk asset. Now, this is not financial advice. This is just the way I operate. If you need to manage your risk and not be super speculative that you think that something has to go up in the short term because you prescribe to a 4-year cycle theory that is somewhat preconceived over just the prior cycle and the fact that the halvings are spaced approximately every 4 years. But if you really dig into the data, I think there's a lot of evidence that supports the fact that it's likely a lengthening cycle. Now, if it's a 4-year cycle, I would love it. I'm sure most people would love it, because then it means that we can take profits at likely really nice gains quicker. But let's be level-headed about this. Let's look at the data. The data makes it seem like the cycle is going to take longer, and if it does, then we need to be prepared for it. If it doesn't, we're also going to be prepared for it. And this is the reason too we're analyzing other aspects that affect markets. It's important, I think, that global markets are healthy, and in fact Bitcoin has performed very well over the last 10 to 11 years. And during that time, global markets have also, the traditional markets like the Dow Jones and the S&P, the NASDAQ, they've all been in bull markets for that entire time because, Bitcoin was born out of the 2008 recession. So let's not completely discount the fact that, we can't just say, oh, well, there's no correlation there. There's, I've looked at the correlations before. So if you look at the Bitcoin bear markets, so if you look at a bear market for Bitcoin, and look at the correlation coefficient between the Bitcoin bear market and what the S&P was doing at that time, there actually is no correlation. However, we haven't had a bear market in traditional markets to then compare to Bitcoin. So this will give us some data that we can then use to try to give ourselves more information down the road, because this channel only started in 2019. I'm planning to continue to grow this for years and years and years. So this is just going to be more data that we can look back to in the future to try to identify these macro level trends in the market and help people plan accordingly. So with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I know some of you prefer me to just stick to, looking at Bitcoin and whatnot, but I am hoping to expand the channel a little bit and to look at markets and things that are affecting markets and how it ultimately plays into Bitcoin, because some level of fundamental analysis I think can go a long way than only looking at price charts. So if you guys like this content, again, I would really appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel. And if you want to talk about this stuff and dive into the charts, then check out this Telegram link here. You can find it in the description below, and go check the Telegram channel out and talk to everyone about what your opinions are. We try to keep the group well moderated, and actually we're approaching 2,000 members, so we will be getting a second person to moderate the chat. We already have, so there's me, there's one other guy named the Dawson, and then we're going to get one more person to help moderate that chat. I feel like every 1,000 members or so, I'll add someone to help moderate so that it doesn't get too crazy in there, and so that we can continue building, a community that we're level-headed. We're not, I'm not here to just show referral links to you guys so that you go leverage trade and lose your money. That's not the purpose of the channel. We try to take a serious approach, a disciplined approach, so that we can all benefit from the analysis that is presented. So if you guys like that and want to be a part of that, then check out the Telegram link, and I hope that you also subscribe. And I will talk to you guys next time. Bye.